I accidentally took a 500 milligram edible and I realized that I was transgender. My experience was separated into 8 different stages. The first stage was ignorance, followed by realization, and then the time warp, and then the cinema. The void was after that, then rebirth, then the bees, and finally gluttony. A little bit of backstory, my friends and I do a trip up north every summer, and for this summer we decided to do a trip in the woods. We were in an off-the-grid cabin around 40 to 50 miles away from the nearest town, and we had some random edibles with us. At the time, we did not know how strong they were, and so I was down for a fun time, so I took half of one. It was later figured out that one edible was 1,000 milligrams. And so, well, that started everything. This is the beginning of the first stage, which is ignorance, which is me taking half of an edible without knowing how powerful it was. And for a little bit in the car, I felt excited because I didn't know exactly what type of trip I would be getting. And then getting back to our little cabin from our little supply trip to the town, we started to feel it, especially me. And everything just felt good. I felt like everything was flowing and everything had already happened before. Everything was just deja vu. Then realization came. I was drinking water, and I have a little latch water bottle, and, I got a little nervous, so I was unlatching, drinking, latching, unlatching, drinking, latching, and it was at this point I realized I can't move my fingers anymore. I went to go unlatch my water bottle, and my fingers would not move. And so I started to freak out a little bit, and I'm like, okay, we'll just sit here, and we'll just think. We'll think about stuff. And this is when I realized I forgot my name. I forgot where I lived. I didn't know who the people were around me. I didn't know how to speak English. I actually didn't know anything, and I was forgetting everything I've ever known, which heightened the anxiety. Around the time my anxiety started getting really bad came the time warp. This is when the entire fabric of time shifted, and time came to a standstill. Time would only progress if I physically leaned forward, and it would regress if I leaned backwards. And so this resulted in me doing a lot of swaying because I was trying to see how I could manipulate time, and it was working. And, well, that kind of made me freaked out. This section's into the next part of the trip, which was the cinema. And this is happening pretty much like in junction with the time warp in that I started seeing subtitles. Everything that was happening, I saw subtitles in my field of vision of what people were saying and what was happening, but it wasn't necessarily that helpful because I forgot how to speak English. So it was just a bunch of gibberish, and everybody was like an actor, and I was in a TV show that I could fast forward and rewind at will. Continuing this part of the trip, I kind of started to freak out a little bit, so I started to stand up because I was sitting down the whole time. And my friends got really worried about me, that my face was all red, my eyes were completely bloodshot, I was freaking out a little bit, and they thought I had to throw up. And so they're like hunching me over and being like, throw up, throw up, throw up. And I could understand what they were trying to do, and I was like, oh, I have to throw up. And so I'm just standing there above an open trash can like, why am I not throwing up? Because I didn't have to throw up, they just thought I did. But then after them trying to get me to throw up, everything went dark. We have now entered the void. If you remember watching SpongeBob as a kid, the one episode of Squidward entering, like, the white void of him just, like, in liminal space, it was like that, except everything was pitch black. And I was kind of just hanging out in there for a while and just kind of existing. And it was at this important juncture where I realized my, like, avatar of my being was a woman. And I was really confused and a little scared of being like, oh, I have to think about this now. But I had more important things to worry about, which is I'm in a void. But the specific thing about this void is that there was a whispering voice, like an entity, like from the sky. And it was kind of muffled, and I decided to ignore it because I was kind of chilling in my void. And after a while, I start getting a little annoyed by that little entity, and so I start to listen in. And this entity was speaking to me and just repeating a phrase, and the phrase was, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Just that, on repeat. And I was like, that's stupid, who cares, who cares? And so I ignore it, and I'm just chilling in my void. But then after, some more time passes, I'm like, you know what? This is getting really annoying. Is it still saying the same thing? I listen in, and it's in through your nose, out through your mouth. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And I'm like, dang, this is annoying as hell. But I might as well try it. I'll see what it gets me. And so I start trying to breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth. In through my nose, out through my mouth. And then everything is a bright flash of light. We have entered rebirth. And so this is me waking up from the void, coughing up water. Because apparently I sort of forgot about my friends trying to feed me water because they thought I looked really thirsty. And because, remember how I couldn't use my fingers? I didn't have very much control over my bodily functions. And so I couldn't swallow. So they gave me some water, poured it down my throat, and it went into my windpipe, and I was choking. And so that entire time, I was dying. And so finally, by breathing, I figured out that I can cough up all of the water in my lungs and survive. And so coming out of it was a brand new sense of rebirth and acknowledgement of, oh, I'm a woman. I have to deal with this now. And then came the bees. After being born into my new life, I started to get a little more anxious. And this anxiety was riddled with me rocking back and forth with my hands in my hair, shaking my hair like this, rocking back and forth, and I was just murmuring to myself like a quiet whisper. I was just repeating, the bees are coming. Like, the bees are coming. And I had no idea what it was. My friends didn't know what it was. None of us knew who the bees or what the bees were, but I knew that the bees were coming. And so after the bees did not come, no coming for bees. It's fucked up, dude. After I stopped messing around with the bees, I took a nap. And I went to bed for like 6 hours and then woke up later that night with all of my friends by a campfire, and everyone looked so tired. And I could barely walk. It took me like 10 minutes to walk like 10 feet. And I sat down in my chair right by the campfire, and I devoured around 15 hot dogs in like 30 minutes. And then I went upstairs to our little log cabin and went to bed. And then I woke up the next day with insane afterburn. But, well, now I'm here, so don't do it. Horrendous experience. If you want to find yourself, there are better ways to do it. Do you want an easy way to do it? Be safe.